Thank you. Hey, everybody. I'm 0x Joshua of Azos Finance. Just remember to keep it flow. Yeah. Although you might know me as the Buffercorn steward from ETH Denver. Very happy to be here in Brussels. Thank you. We have an excellent panel for you here today, and I'm going to let our fine panelists introduce themselves so that I don't butcher anything. So let's start with question number one. Give us an introduction, who you are, and what you're working on.
Hey guys, so I am Kyle Webster. I'm also Kyle Stargarden from Azos Labs. I've been a smart contract engineer for about 4 years. Came through the DAO space, done work with DAO House, Raid Guild, and a bunch of other top tier governance nerds. And yeah, at Azos Labs, what we're building is a stablecoin backed by real world impact assets like tokenized renewable energy certificates, tokenized green bonds, tokenized carbon credits. Basically, we want to be the reserve currency of the regenerative economy. And I think that now is basically the best time to do this.
I'm saying hold it closer.
A little closer, okay. Yeah, so we're definitely seeing the effects of climate change. We're definitely seeing all sorts of problems that are cropping up in society because we're not putting the right amount of attention and the right amount of coordination into solving these issues together. So that's the skinny of it. I'm the head of protocol at Azos Labs.
All right, my name is Jasper Driesens. I am from Glow Dollar. So Glow Dollar is essentially a copy paste of USDC, the stablecoin most of us know and love. It's a copy paste. It's a US regulated stablecoin backed to the dollar, backed by the same assets as USDC. It falls under the same regulatory framework. We hired the same law firm as Circle did to set it up. And our general counsel is the ex-interim general counsel of Circle, with one big difference, and that is that we are a nonprofit. So Circle makes a lot of money on your stablecoin assets because it's backed by treasuries and they're taking the interest. We give the interest away to public goods and charities. And as a holder, you decide where we donate the money to. So you can connect your wallet to our app, and then you can select extreme poverty reduction or climate change or Web3 public goods. Soon we'll add helping refugees. And then every month we make profit on your money. But then instead of it going to Jeremy Allaire or Paolo from Tether, it goes to charities and public goods, making the world a better place. And that means that if you're using stablecoins, you can financially support good organizations without paying for it. And that's something that we call donationless philanthropy. The last remark, I guess, is that Tether and Circle made $8 billion last year. Congratulations to them. It's an amazing business model. But I think that is interest of our money. And I think that as a crypto ecosystem, we can do better things with that $8 billion.
Yeah, thanks. That's an awesome introduction. So my name is Nate Schneider. I'm a co-founder of Cogito Finance. Cogito Finance is actually an RWA project. And we tokenize several different things, treasuries, stocks, bonds. But of interest for this panel maybe is more of a green bond tokenization. So we are tokenizing the green investments. For example, when a company, government, or institution, they have some plans to invest in some green technologies or green initiatives, they can basically offer the green bond, and they're usually very enticed to invest, so they get slightly better conditions, but still they have to pay the bond back, and it's still a loan. And the stuff that is being supported are different kinds of initiatives. For example, climate change, for example, the reduction of carbon emissions, but there are also like cleaner technology, cleaner water, agriculture, and some stuff like that. So all of that can be actually used, and this is being tokenized, and we are basically offering those bonds to everybody to buy, and also, of course, to the stablecoin issuers. It is like a low risk, low return, or at least lower-ish risk investment, and basically it gives you, basically the holders, all of the returns. So it's very interesting for those that are trying to invest, get some return, and at the same time help make world run different kinds of initiatives to improve it. For example, as I mentioned before, like green initiatives or other kind of initiatives that are there in the green bonds. All of this is, of course, standardized, and there is just a promotion of the good cause in investment. And the whole idea behind this was actually to, in crypto, you can invest in many different things. Of course, stablecoins, they're very good, and we definitely support that fully and wholly. But anyway, we're trying to bring more of those investments that are doing the public good into the blockchain. And we're not just trying with high-risk investments, which you can get in blockchain. We're also trying to bring like lower-risk investments in the blockchain, which I believe are very rare right now. And of course, stablecoins are not just investment; they're usually used for transactions as well. So we are mostly in investment. So this is in short about Cogito Finance. And yeah, thank you.
Hey everybody, great to be here at Stable Summit. I'm Marcus. I'm a contributor at KlimaDAO, where we're using blockchain technology to solve some longstanding problems in the carbon credit market, as well as other environmental commodity markets. My background is in data science and data engineering, so I work mostly on our dashboards and analytics. But yeah, at Klima, we have a vision that positive climate impact can be embedded into every transaction, and a mechanism for doing that is carbon credits. And there are other environmental commodities being developed, but carbon credits are the most mature. And we think there are some really obvious problems that can be solved using DeFi primitives like AMMs and protocol-owned liquidity to bring greater liquidity, access, and transparency to this really important market that's otherwise functioning right now on like PDFs, emails, wire transfers, pretty much 1990s era technology. And so we think that web-based technologies like blockchain can be a really powerful transformative catalyst for this important market, driving more finance and also addressing some of the issues around integrity and transparency that have long plagued this important market.
Thanks, guys. We were joking earlier about how the intros would take 10 minutes, but they actually only took 7. Look at that. We got an extra 3 minutes. Okay, so let's start with the first question. I want to ask all of you, and then we'll, I guess, debate it if we have any differences. How can stablecoins help fund positive impact?
So I have a couple very specific ideas for how I think KlimaDAO can use stablecoins to increase the amount of positive impact that we're able to finance. In particular, stablecoins allow you to transform, specifically CDP-based stablecoins, allow you to transform any stable collateral asset into dollars that you can go and spend in the real world. And so KlimaDAO is in the position of having a large amount of carbon credits in our treasury, some of which we are selling for use to end users. But we have quite a lot, and we'd like to be able to collateralize those assets, turn them into cash, and then put that cash into new carbon projects that are going and having more positive impact. And so it can be a multiplier effect on the dollar value of our treasury. Rather than just having to sell credits for dollars and then turn those dollars around, we can borrow against credits and use those dollars to fund new projects. And so aligning with a project like Azos is really compelling because we know that the other collateral assets in the basket of collateral that our carbon credits will be sitting with are also positive impact assets, as opposed to a generic CDP-based system like, say, MakerDAO, where we're going to be pooled alongside a bunch of other assets that may or may not have anything to do with positive impact.
Cool, yeah. I would just build from what he said. Basically, when he mentions the carbon credits and everything, we're also offering like green bonds that are maybe a bit lower risk, lower return, but you can do very similar stuff with them, which is, I think, a great advantage. And in general, I think just that blockchain and crypto, they just need more like investments where they can actually entice the public impact. So the good impact, the regenerative finance. And this is the whole idea because why we were thinking about the green fund at Cogito Finance. And we were thinking of, okay, like we definitely want to offer people and investors different kind of risk appetites, but we don't want just like different risk appetites. We want some additional thing near it. Like we want to actually make good to the world. And a lot of the crypto projects, they are obviously focused on utility, which is very important, and I fully support that. But we're building on top of them. So of course we are also looking how to encourage also the green initiatives and other initiatives that are just helping the environment. And this is exactly what we're doing for the green bonds. We're not only offering like lower return, but also like with this return, there's something positive going on in the world. There is like some communities, sometimes maybe in Africa, which is just trying to get like clean water to the community. This is like, the whole, this balance that is not existing in this world has to be fixed. And I think crypto is actually a great way how to do it. There's more to that actually, because besides actually encouraging those green investments, we're also enabling all around the world with tokenization to actually have the access to those investments. So a better connection between supply and demand of capital flows. Right now, it exists to some extent, but it exists on very developed markets, which we are used to in the West, but not every market is like that. Some markets are very hard to access, and we're just bringing this to everyone, so everybody can make an impact. Everybody can just park their money, and with this, actually help the environment, help some community. And I think this is actually very encouraging, and this is the whole reason why we actually went into this solution with this product of ours. So yeah, this would be.
Yeah, I would add another one to that, and that is, so I just mentioned, right, that Tether and Circle made $10 billion per year, but that's not very unique to stablecoins. Actually, what's happening here is that Tether and Circle are taking what I would call the profit margin on money, and the profit margin on money is something that most consumers are not aware exists. But any company that is handling your money is taking sort of like a profit margin or a float on that money. If you have your money at a bank, then the bank is profiting off the money. If you have it at Cash App or at PayPal, then they are profiting. And Circle and Tether are just doing the same kind of thing. If you combine the entire profit margin of money of all the fiat money in the world, you would come to, I believe, $3 trillion per year. What I mean with that figure is that, let's say USDC would replace all the fiat money in the world, then their yearly revenue would be $3 trillion per year. For the first time in history, perhaps, stablecoins allow us to decouple the profit margin of money from the platform that you're using. Because if you're using stablecoins at a Cash App equivalent, then the profit margin of money doesn't have to go to Cash App, let's say. With a stablecoin, as a user, you can decide where the profit margin of money goes. So with stablecoins, we are potentially unlocking a $3 trillion per year revenue stream for Impact. And often Impact is now, like some Impact causes are now constrained by donations, people giving money away. The problem is most people, most of the time, keep most of their money for themselves. Like even the most generous people in the world give away, let's say, 10% of their income, which means that they're keeping 90% of their income. And that makes sense because they need to pay their rent and their bills and stuff like that. If we unlock this other stream of money, we can add more money to the philanthropic pool of dollars, basically, without relying on more money being given away by people. And stablecoins are just a technology that allows us to do that.
Yeah, it's really amazing to be up here with you guys and talk about this sort of thing, because like Klima was part of the inspiration for Azos protocol. Like mobilizing these traditional impact assets like carbon credits, moving them on chain is actually what allows Azos protocol to even exist. And to see that you're now doing that with green bonds at Kotija, that is exactly what we need to see. Like that's the validation that we're headed in the right direction. So our take at Azos about how to create this impact flywheel is that we need to build financial tools for impact asset classes that have competitive returns with any other decentralized finance protocol or any other traditional asset management or investment, because that means you're going to get the exact same cash return. You're going to get the same yield off of using our investment or off of using our Azos protocol as you would from some less impact oriented investment. Let's say gas or oil or mining or whatever other thing you might have invested in to get this, this 15% return. You can actually invest in impact and you can get that exact same return. Because that's the thing. People aren't going to give their money away. They aren't going to give their money away a little bit, right? They're not going to give enough money away. They want to use a financial tool, a financial primitive that delivers the same high returns that you get from a traditional investment. And so that's what Azos protocol is. And that's where the impact flywheel kicks in. Because if you can leverage green bond holdings, or you can leverage high quality carbon credit holdings, and you can get the same return from that as you would invest in oil and gas, a lot of people will do that. And we'll see a floodgate open where green bond cash, carbon credit cash, market efficiencies increase, and those assets come on chain and become this fat source of collateral for decentralized finance.
Sorry, I would just build on some of the stuff that you guys said. Like he mentioned that there's $3 trillion yearly that is being basically just lost in, safe investments, just management. And this is usually going to actually already quite rich people, like the fund managers and stuff like that. And I'm not saying it should be completely erased from them. Those guys, some of them are very smart and do a lot of stuff, but we're talking about what, 3 trillion? This is a GDP maybe of Italy or something like that. So if we transform just a significant piece of that and just give it to something good, the world would be actually a much better place. GDP of Italy is not so small. I don't know it now on my mind what exactly it is, but I would think 3 trillion is not far away from it. So this is a huge amount of money, and to funnel it in the right direction. And this is what all of our projects are actually trying to do. This can actually help a lot of environments and drive a lot of change every year.
Yeah, to make a small addition on that, to give a sense of what $3 trillion per year would do. There's an estimate, I think, by the Longview organization, not sure what they're called. Their estimate was that with $1 trillion per year, you could eradicate extreme poverty, hunger, HIV, malaria, and I'm forgetting one other disease. So that would be pretty nice. That would be pretty nice.
And this is just in 1 year.
Right.
That sounds like a lot of slippage that's is escaping the ecosystem. I think one of the problems, especially one of the things that all of you touched on, is specifically with refi and perhaps the branding. When people think about impact, they're especially retail, are oh, I can't make money doing this, so it has a liquidity problem. So is it a branding problem? What is it? Because it sounds like what each of you is trying to do would solve a lot of world problems.
Yeah, and I think that you've hit it on the head, which is that people associate refi with, with giving their money away, as opposed to, having a powerful financial tool at their disposal. And part of that is our fault as nerds. We haven't put all of the different pieces in place yet to deliver financial regenerative tools that are no-brainers. They're just as strong, just as powerful as other DeFi tools.
Yeah, I have a couple of reactions to that. On one hand, I think that your point earlier, Stargarden, about making these attractive yield opportunities that also have a positive impact as a byproduct is one way to get those degens thinking oh, I can actually deploy my money toward positive impact and still capture a reasonable yield on it. But then on the other hand, there's also an opportunity to reward people for giving their money away. This is something that I think traditional philanthropy gets really right for the big dollar donations. You know, you get your name on a building or on a foundation. But then for the small dollar donations, if I donate, you know, $10 or $20 a month, I don't get anything from the nonprofit to like show to my friends and put on my social media. And this is something where I think there's an inspiration from carbon credits that's now being applied more generally. One of the few things I think the refi community is getting right, which is this idea of impact attestation. The idea being that when you have a positive impact, you get a reward in the form of a certificate or an NFT that represents the positive impact you had. So in the case of a carbon credit, when you retire or destroy the carbon credit and claim the underlying benefit, you get a certificate and you can put that on your website, put that in your social media. And now we see that idea being applied to other dimensions of impact. And I think that's a really powerful model for showing that you're not necessarily giving away your money for nothing. You're giving away your money, and then you get in return the opportunity to show basically the virtue signal, hey, I did the right thing. Are you doing the right thing? And that becomes a pressure point for galvanizing more impact.
Yeah, sure. I agree with everything that they said, like completely. I would just add that by putting everything on chain, we are also letting almost everyone in the world have access to this. So everybody can participate in this and take part of this. So there is a big inclusion that is there. And since the blockchain is like very divisible, you don't really have to be that rich to participate. You can be actually quite poor. You can be from some very remote area. As long as you have internet, which almost everybody today has, you can just participate in this ecosystem. So I think this is how this ecosystem is also growing and has like a enormous potential over the traditional system that is there. Traditional system is okay, but we can do so much better. So yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to disagree with what you just said. I know there's a debate in philanthropy whether if you participate in philanthropy, should you tell other people about it? And sort of like underlying, like, what should your motivation be? Should you be motivated by pure ego-less altruism, or is it okay to be motivated by status or social dynamics and stuff like that, showing off? And personally, like, if people are motivated by pure altruism and don't want to talk about their philanthropy, power to them, right? But if we can get more people altruistic by giving them bragging rights or karma points or flashy status symbols, why not, right? Like, let's plug into human nature if it leads us to the right things, I would say.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because as as people that build impact-oriented products, there's two components there, which one is like the status, and the other one is just the raw feel-good nature of doing the good thing. And it's interesting to like balance those two things and also see what your customers really want, because some customers they really want the feel-good. They want to know they contributed to something positive. They want to look into the impact that their fund is actually having. And other people, they just want that flashy attestation or NFT, and they just want to be like, flash that on the timeline. So,
yeah, I wanted to add one other point on this, which is about incentives. And I really do think that, on one hand, if you can attest that the activity that you supported has a positive impact, I don't necessarily care that much about what incentive actually got you over the line to allocate money. What I care about is that you are publicly and transparently showing, hey, this is what I spent money on. And whether you did that because you have a marketing budget that, allocated to sustainability initiatives, or because your regulator is breathing down your neck and you're worried about them, forcing you to use a compliance market or something. The point is that you're attesting to your positive impact in a transparent and verifiable way, as compared to the status quo today with corporate sustainability reports is like, you dump a 50-page PDF on your website, nobody reads it. And so it's hard to tell, they say carbon neutral at the top of the website, but like, how do I actually know? Do I have to go read this 50-page PDF? And there's actually been some regulatory angles taken on this issue in the EU and also in the US, trying to put in place stronger regulations around how people make claims like carbon neutral or sustainability goals, so that they're actually backing it up with verifiable information instead of just a giant PDF that no one reads.
I was just thinking about the flow of money and and how you can get more value into the hands of I guess the tail end of the sides of the projects you're working on, and how do we create that impact in these local communities? If Glow, for example, if it's the same, if it spends the same, it holds the same, has the same interoperability as USDC, how do you get more people to start using it?
Well, it's definitely not easy. The incumbents have great network effects. As a challenger, you are faced with this double chicken and egg problem, or perhaps even triple chicken and egg problem, where you are behind on users, liquidity, and integrations. And builders will integrate you when users start asking for it, but users will use you when there's integrations. And you have the same loop with liquidity. So I don't think there is a shortcut. It is a matter of spreading the word, keep doing it consistently, and then making the right steps on all of these three fronts in sort of lobstack, and slowly but surely knocking over new wins. What I think really helps there as a strategy is that most people and most organizations just don't want to be the ones to take a risk at first. They want to see others do it first. The good thing with stablecoins, and I guess with any tokenized thing, is that there's no need for anyone to go all in at once. For instance, Gitcoin is holding multiple $1 million of USDC. We don't have to have them dump all of their USDC for Glow Dollar tomorrow. They bought a 6-figure amount of Glow Dollars a while ago, and that's the first step. And then a while later, Polygon Labs also bought a 6-figure amount of Glow Dollar. And then last week, the Shutter DAO bought a 6-figure amount of Glow Dollar. So they're still mostly holding USDC. But now they're all gradually diversifying, and they're doing it collectively. So they can look at one another like, oh, you took the next step. Okay, now we feel certain enough about this new thing to also take the next step. And then I think slowly but surely, as an ecosystem, we can we can move away from the incumbents.
Did you want? And then I guess the same question to Kyle. And with the eventual proliferation of Zai, how do you envision being able to get it into the hands of people who need it?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question, and there's two main components to our strategy for building liquidity and actually getting the Zai token out to users. One is obviously partnering with asset managers and custodians, digital asset custodians. So that's basically how do we get traditional asset managers that have large funds loaded with carbon credits, loaded with renewable energy certificates and green bonds. How do we get them to actually work with a tokenization provider, bring that collateral on chain, and use it to generate more Zai stablecoins? And then the second half of that is just aggressively partnering with market makers and liquidity providers from ecosystems and DeFi, Curve, Stake Capital, all these guys that we've been talking to, even potentially PayPal USD, because suddenly there's this PayPal USD that's available. These are ways that we are going to work to get the Zai token to be very liquid, to get it to be utilized, get incentives from platforms like Aerodrome, platforms that will actually incentivize liquidity on our behalf. Again, Curve. And then another thing that's interesting, so we have a stability module that allows the protocol to achieve 100% capital efficiency, but only with pre-approved stable coins and only with a certain ceiling. So it's a CDP, but it's not a user-generated CDP. It's a protocol-generated CDP. So now that we're talking about Glow Dollar, we might actually want to launch a stability module for Azos protocol that uses maybe the Glow Dollar as a one-to-one backing for Zai. And that allows us to scale our supply of Xi up and down rapidly in response to changes in demand. So, yeah. So the thing is, like, all of us, all three of you guys up here have like this super cool, interesting potential way for Azos protocol to utilize what you're building.
Josh, you asked earlier about sort of how can these technologies bring financial infrastructure to smaller communities, to local people on the ground who might not otherwise have access to traditional financial infrastructure. And there's a really specific use case that a protocol like Azos unlocks, where let's say we have a project developer in India. They're distributing improved cook stoves to their local community to reduce emissions. In a traditional market, they would need to go and borrow money from a financer or get investment from a speculator who wants to buy their credits ahead of time. They then take that money, go and buy the cook stoves, distribute them. And then typically 18 months to 3 years later, they finally get their credits delivered. And then they can go sell the credits, get cash, turn around and do more of the project. So the question is, can we use some of the DeFi primitives that have been developed to shorten that process? And there's a couple different points where you could do that. On one hand, once the first phase of the project has been completed and those initial spot credits have been delivered, you can then collateralize those rather than selling them on the open market, because selling them might take 6 months to actually move. But if you can collateralize them on day one, unlock, say, 20 or 30% of the capital, go start doing more of the project, you get that flywheel moving a little bit faster. The other interesting opportunity would be taking the forward credits, i.e. the promise to deliver, and collateralizing that. That's a bit of a harder stretch because they're a less liquid instrument by definition, but that's potentially another opportunity to really speed up that flywheel and drive more capital.
Yeah, I'm super interested to talk about the undelivered credits and like maybe how that would pass our risk assessment framework, but it's tricky. It's tricky. I'm glad that we have people with deep knowledge, because I'm a nerd. I'm a DeFi nerd. Okay, I don't know nearly as much about the carbon credits and the green bonds and stuff, but I love learning about it, and I'm really honored to be on this panel with all three of you guys.
There's another word we use for DeFi nerds, right? Degens. You're all degens, all of you.
Yes.
But you're in the regenerative space. So before we get into the second layer of the question, what's the difference between a degen and a regen?
Okay, so this is my hot take. This is where I start to diverge from most people who consider themselves regens or refi nerds. Because in my opinion, decentralized finance, by its very nature, it delivers more power, more inclusivity, more equity to anyone on the planet. And that by its very nature is regenerative. So I don't think that refi and DeFi are different things. I think that refi is DeFi. I think all regens, you're degens.
Yeah, that's an interesting take, but I hear you sort of like presume that the D in degenerates comes from DeFi. And so sometimes that might be true, but my take on degens is degens are people who I think in the most basic sense, they live for weird and spectacular shit happening. Like they like numbers unexpectedly going up in weird volumes. They like sort of like scandals. They like to see rug pulls, unless it's them being rug pulled, of course. They just like shit blowing up and going to the moon. And I think degens are sort of like a stage one where it's like, oh, this is awesome, weird shit is happening, but I'm not really thinking too much yet about where it's all leading or where it's all going, on which numbers are exploding. And then I think a regen is someone who likes all the stuff that a G-gen likes, but then it's sort of like going to the next level. It's like, okay, we're having fun and all, and I'm making profits, but in the long run, like, what does this mean? Like, what is the systemic result of this kind of thing? And with Glow Dollar last month, actually, we so as a stablecoin issuer, we sometimes feel a little bit conflicted. We want to also be this serious organization that you can trust to hold very traditional TradFi accounts in a US regulated way. So sometimes we want to market ourselves to the DGen crowd, but it's difficult, right? But last month we did a sort of like collaboration with the Regen token, the Mushroom Club. And they did this weird thing where you could get 100x multiplier on your Regen tokens if you donate it in Glow dollars on Cello. And suddenly we had, I think, hundreds of new people who never touched Glow dollar trying to figure out how they could get their hands on Glow dollar on Cello. And that's like, okay, that's that DGen power.
I was one of them.
Attached to a Regen initiative. And it does work. I have to say, it does work.
I was one of them, actually. That was probably one of the first times I tried to use it.
All 100 wallets were Josh trying. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really interesting question. And at Klimo, we've certainly been on a wild ride trying to harness the power of degenerate activity to drive regenerative impact. You know, I do push back a little bit on the sort of synthesis that you're going for, trying to bring the degen and regens under one roof. In particular, because there is a specific aspect of the degenerate mindset that I think many regens find themselves a bit put off by, which is the profit maxi mindset. Like, I'm going to do everything I can to get the most yield to generate the most wealth for myself. And I think it's a really delicate thing to balance, because on one hand, I think a lot of the power of the blockchain ethos of open source technology, decentralized finance, is around enabling people to take control of their own money, take control of their own software, and do what they want to do with it, rather than sort of the prescribed what is appropriate. And I do worry that some of the regen movement has gotten a bit up in their own head about like, oh, well, if we're making money, then that means we're the baddies. And I think that's a bit misguided. And I worry that that's where the regen movement has struggled and gone astray, is around this emphasis on, no, we were not allowed to make money. We can't have profits. That's for the bad people. And I don't know, I've never felt that way myself, but I have sensed this tension in a lot of the conversations I've been a part of in the regen movement. But actually, if we're going to be regenerative, we need sustainable business models to like drive money through the door so that we can go keep doing the important positive impact that we're all about. And so I do think that marrying the degenerate mindset with regenerative ethos is a really powerful and fertile soil, but it requires some difficult conversations to be had about like what are appropriate ways to make money and appropriate ways to spend that money.
Yeah, I would also end with like my thinking. I also think that regenerative people are the subgroup of degens. Degens, they firstly want to make money, and they are very interested into decentralization, with which they, in theory, include other people. But I would say it's not always like that. The biggest care to include other people is not always there with degens. I mean, it's there, but it's not the primary. But regenerative finance is putting a big focus on impact and on other people. And I'd say it's really hard to say where's the line, but I would say there is some difference when we come to this. It's just mainly that both of them, of course, want profit, and both of them want decentralized. But degens sometimes are mainly profit and not necessarily decentralization, although this is their primary goal, while regenerative finance is a lot about impact.
Yeah, so we've definitely gotten to the exact part of like my beef with the artificial distinction between regens and degens. And for me, it boils down to this. So in the normal financial system, the people who are profit maxing with your cash is not even you. You don't even get to be a profit maxi in the normal traditional financial system. So as a degen, if you are acting as a profit maxi for yourself, that is still regenerative, because you as the individual, you have been included in this system. You are receiving the equity from this system that uses your own resources. That's regenerative finance by many people's definitions. So, and also one more thing, okay? So if we don't build regenerative finance tools that deliver the highest profits to individual users, the game theory suggests we will not get mainstream adoption through those tools. We actually have to provide financial tools that are every bit as powerful as non-impact financial tools. And that is that's the secret. That's the catalyst that sucks capital, liquidity, and mind share into regenerative finance.
So I think I agree with what you say, but I'm spotting potentially a paradox. But please help me out. So if you're saying that the traditional financial system is not in the individual's best interest, and if you're saying that game theoretically we should allow the individuals to maximize their profit, otherwise we will not get mainstream adoption. And third observation, the TradFi financial system has mainstream adoption. How can the TradFi system have gotten mainstream adoption? Because they are not game theoretically optimal then, right?
The answer to that question is violence.
Fair enough. That trumps game theory, or is that so like, yeah.
So then is it a branding problem? The concept regen is automatically associated with not being a capitalist?
I don't think so. I mean, you can still be capitalist on regen, right? Like, you can still believe that money is the main thing, but you also just want to put it in the right direction. I would also say, like in degens, you have a lot of projects that are not completely decentralized, but they're crypto. Degens will still go for it sometimes, not all of them. Regens, I don't think this is the whole point of the regens. I think this is where the line starts forming.
I think this is the challenge when you're talking about cultural movements in general, that there are many different kinds of people with many different incentives and motivations. And we're trying to put words on things, right? We're trying to have clear definitions and speak about movements. But the reality is that there's a plurality of different perspectives within a given movement. I think what can be helpful is distinguishing values, right? What are the value systems that we are trying to align behind? And at that level, I think the regen meme has been really powerful in a way that the degen meme, I mean, people definitely rally behind it, but it's like in a sort of half self-mocking, like tongue-in-cheek way of like, yeah, I'm a degen too. Whereas I think regens have this like proud, like they're trying to stand up for the values they believe in. I wish that degens could be more proud and like stand up for the values that are behind the Web3 space, especially when it comes to solutions and platforms that are maybe not actually decentralized and not actually using open source code. Obviously, in 2022, we saw the fallout of quite a few centralized systems that sort of walk the walk of being a degen, talk the talk of being a degen, but were actually just traditional financial institutions in new clothes. And so I think the degen community needs to be very vigilant about that kind of thing. Conversely, the regen movement needs to be very vigilant about real business models, because we've seen a lot of projects come up and just try to raise money on an idea that doesn't really make sense as a business. And then when they go to talk to investors or the community about, hey, we want to raise all this money to go and do something, but then our business model is we're just going to give away money forever. And then when we run out of money, it's over.
Yeah, you brought up values. And a while ago, we sat down with the team to define our company values. And one phrase that we ended up with was, we're hacking capitalism for impact. And we thought it was a good phrase because hacking capitalism does not imply that you're pro or anti-capitalism. You're just working with what you've been given. So for instance, I go to Davos every year, and I might privately puke about that sort of like subset of the world, but that doesn't matter. Like, I'm just trying to raise market cap because that will raise impact. And I know that if I go to Davos, I have meetings that will help me do that. So that is, I think, very much regen. You're not necessarily saying, fuck the system. You're saying, hey, system, I will come at you and I will reach my goals with you or without you. Let's see how it ends up. Something like that.
Yeah, I think, you're 100% right. There's a branding issue with the regen, with the refi space. And then, you pointed out probably the real cause, like the root cause of this, like you have people motivated so much by wanting to do good that they feel like taking any kind of profit or generating revenue, like generating profit, is bad. And so those two things I think are kind of connected. You think about refi, and a lot of refi projects, they give the money away. And I think that makes it hard for average DeFi users. Your average degen doesn't want to participate in that system.
I don't think that degen and regen are opposite sides of a coin, because you can be both. To me, I think of a degen as anyone who has a nonce over 20, or is one of the first couple hundred people to use a contract, or first million to use a contract in TBL. It's more about the insecurity or potential, the new rails that you're testing out, and that's like you're being degenerate with your money. Whereas I don't think that when you're using these regenerative finance tools, they also could be degen. I was one of the first people to use the new Give contracts, and that's a degen move.
I mean, in many ways, the story of KlimaDAO is the story of turning degens into regens, or using the degen impulse to drive positive activity. And I do think it's really powerful, but it comes with risk, right? And especially if people are not clear on what they're actually trying to do, there can be a lot of confusion. And in the wake of the KlimaDAO launch, I think we brought in thousands of new people that were otherwise not at all familiar with Web3.
So many degens.
But then on the other hand, there were tens of thousands of degens who were aping in at all-time highs. And it's hard. It's hard to manage expectations. But I do think that that's why conversation and dialogue between people who identify as degens and people who identify in regens can be really productive, because you can help people see what are the motivations and incentives out there, as opposed to the things that are driving my behavior. What incentives are driving other people's behavior?
Yeah, I've got to say my definition of a degen is much closer to yours, which is like pioneering people who love risk, who are willing to use experimental software and plug their money into it. And I think Andre Cronje from Yearn summed it up the best when he said, test and prod. Even Gitcoin tests and prod.
In a way, right? In crypto, we have this tendency to sort of come up with new names for things that don't really need a new name. And, I think for decades now, we have had this very boring sounding term called an early adopter. And maybe as a big part of being a degen is just sort of we're just putting a new name on being an early adopter in a way, with maybe the risk added into that.
Just say it stands for degenerate.
Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes left. I wanted to give you each an opportunity to do a little future casting. What's your vision for what the regenerative future should look like vis-a-vis stablecoins?
So my vision for a regenerative future is that every time you are engaged in a transaction, every time you're spending money or sending money to someone, a small portion of that transaction is directly funding climate impact. And through these mechanisms, we're able to address planetary boundaries, get our situation under control, and manage the planet ultimately as a public good for all the people who are using the money to benefit from this profit sink that is an inherent part of any money system.
Yeah, my vision is actually quite optimistic, I think, especially with crypto getting in regenerative finance and just helping the communities. I don't expect major changes because of that. I expect more of a reformation of how we live currently, but of course for the better. So in the way that we financially include more people than we did before, they have more equal chances than they had before, because in traditional finance, it's dominated by big players. I'm not saying that we're not going to be dominated by the big players, at least in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the biggest places, but on smaller places, there's still going to be lots of space for everyone. And this is where we actually let everybody come in. And if somebody is super talented, I think they can succeed. And it's really great to see that, this inclusion, when everybody has, not everybody will have exactly the same chances, but almost, it's getting closer. I think this is a great thing. I know that when I was young, I I wanted to work in finance, and I wanted to work at top jobs that are out there. And I came from a small country called Slovenia, and if I want that, there's just nothing in Slovenia because we're too small. There's just not big enough market. So you got to go abroad, like big financial centers like London at my time, and now Frankfurt, New York, something like that. I think now this is going to decentralize, and everybody who is motivated enough can actually get there, which is one thing great. On the second thing, we're actually connecting people who need money with those who have it, and I think this connection is going to be better. We are crossing borders without problems in crypto. There is no real problems with, actual crossing borders when you're sending your crypto abroad. Even if politics is preventing you, they cannot really prevent it because, hey, we are decentralized. We can send money wherever we want, and we can fund anybody with a great vision. So if you're with a great vision, and before that, you didn't really have good access to the capital, I'm not saying now it's going to be perfect. No, far from that. There's still going to be places which are going to have better conditions than others, but you will have a standing chance. And I think this will drive a change on a much better, not just green, but also like communities that are disadvantaged right now. They will be. I'm not going to say they're going to be equal, but they're going to be less disadvantaged, which is by itself great to hear. And yeah, my vision for the future is very optimistic, but mainly because of blockchain. I think blockchain still holds huge potential for changes. It changed a little bit, but I think we're just scratching the surface, and I'm very excited about the future. And of course, we haven't talked about this in the panel, but I think with using the AI and AI advancements in the right way, we can do this even better. This is, by the way, something that Cogito is working very hard at. But again, this was not the topic of this panel, so I didn't really go deep into this. But I think there is a good potential for the change in the future there. And we're not going to make a revolution, but we're going to reform the current system for the better. This is my thinking, at least.
I'll keep it short. My vision for refi is that Glow Dollar replaces 30% of all fiat money in the world, such that we make $1.1 trillion of revenue per year, and we can finally eradicate hunger, extreme poverty, malaria, HIV, and the one I'm still forgetting. There was a fifth one. But...
Yeah, so my vision for the future is pretty crazy science fiction. A decade from now, I envision all sorts of decentralized physical infrastructure networks that are handling things like generating clean energy, producing clean water, sequestering carbon, providing things in people's lives that they just don't have today, and things that are going to massively enrich people's lives, working in that exact same direction, ending poverty, ending hunger, ending these problems that realistically our society shouldn't even have globally, because we're so wealthy, we're so productive that we have these problems. It's like it's shameful, honestly. So we're going to see all sorts of crazy things. We're going to see autonomous robotics that are building like solar production. We're seeing the very formations of these technologies with things like Power Ledger, these physical decentralized infrastructure networks that are generating energy, distributing energy, producing renewable energy certificates. Maybe they're sequestering carbon, they're producing carbon credits. And Azos protocol is sort of this grease on the wheels of all that allows these individual networks to get access to capital on demand as they're doing regenerative activities. I mean, this is like, we're talking 10 years in the future. This is 15 years in the future. This is the world. This is the world we want our children to grow up in.
Is that counting in fiat years or is that crypto years?
That is fiat years. That's like 1 billion years from now in crypto.
We'll see you at ECC 17.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Are there any audience questions? We have a few minutes left. No?
We got any questions from the audience members? Anybody want to take a crack?
Okay. All right. Well, we can wrap it. Any last thoughts? No? You guys did a great job. Treat yourself to some waffles. The Belgian waffles are fantastic. All right.
Oh yeah, we're going after waffles and fries. Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, the frites and beef tallow.
Treats.
Absolutely. Okay. Cut seed oils out of your diet and have a great day, guys.